The world of organized crime is filled with mystery, power struggles, and a dark allure that has fascinated people for centuries. From the infamous Mafia families of Italy and the United States to the ruthless cartels and street gangs that rule various parts of the world, gangsters have carved out their own violent legacies. The Mafia, also known as La Cosa Nostra, traces its roots back to Sicily, Italy, where it emerged in the 19th century as a secret society designed to protect the interests of local businessmen and landowners. Over time, it evolved into a criminal enterprise engaging in extortion, smuggling, and other illicit activities. By the early 20th century, Italian immigrants brought the Mafia to the United States, where it flourished during Prohibition, controlling the distribution of illegal alcohol and expanding into various other illegal markets. One of the most famous Mafia organizations is the Five Families of New York, the Gambino, Genovese, Lucchese, Colombo, and Bonanno crime families. These families dominated organized crime in the United States, operating illegal gambling rings, loan sharking, drug trafficking, and infiltrating labor unions. Figures such as Al Capone, Lucky Luciano, and John Gotti became legendary for their ruthlessness, intelligence, and ability to outmaneuver law enforcement. The rise of organized crime in the 20th century was fueled by corruption and the ability of gangsters to exploit legal loopholes. During the Prohibition era, Mafia families worked with bootleggers to smuggle alcohol into the country, making millions in profit. Al Capone, one of the most notorious crime lords of his time, ruled Chicago with an iron fist, eliminating rivals and establishing a vast network of corruption. His reign ended when he was convicted of tax evasion in 1931. In the 1950s and 60s, the U.S. government began cracking down on organized crime with the introduction of laws like the Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, RICO. High-profile mafia trials exposed the inner workings of crime families, leading to the downfall of many powerful mob bosses. Outside of the United States, organized crime took on many different forms. In Japan, the Yakuza became a dominant force, operating under strict codes of honor while engaging in extortion, gambling, and real estate schemes. In Russia, the rise of the Russian Mafia following the fall of the Soviet Union led to the establishment of powerful crime syndicates that controlled entire industries. Latin America has seen the rise of powerful drug cartels that operate with military precision. The Mexican cartels, such as the Sinaloa cartel and the Zetas, have waged brutal wars over control of drug trafficking routes, leaving thousands dead in their wake. The Colombian cartels, most notably the Medellin and Cali cartels, controlled the global cocaine trade in the 1980s and 90s, with figures like Pablo Escobar amassing immense wealth and influence. Street gangs also play a significant role in organized crime. Groups like the Bloods, Crips, MS-13, and the Latin Kings have been involved in drug distribution, arms trafficking, and violent territorial disputes. Unlike traditional mafia organizations, street gangs often operate with less hierarchy but can be just as deadly. While law enforcement agencies have made significant progress in dismantling organized crime networks, the reality is that gangsters continue to evolve and adapt to new challenges. Cybercrime, money laundering, and human trafficking have become key areas of focus for modern criminal organizations. The influence of gangsters can still be felt in politics, business, and even popular culture, where their stories continue to inspire movies, TV shows, and literature. The legacy of the Mafia and gangsters is one of power, betrayal, and the constant battle between law and disorder. Despite the many arrests and takedowns of notorious figures, the underworld remains alive and well, always finding new ways to operate in the shadows. As law enforcement agencies continue to refine their tactics and intelligence capabilities, criminal organizations are also evolving, leveraging technology and globalization to expand their operations. The internet has provided a new frontier for organized crime, with dark web marketplaces enabling the sale of drugs, weapons, and even illicit services. Hackers and cybercriminals have formed their own underground networks, engaging in identity theft, financial fraud, and corporate espionage. The relationship between politics and organized crime has always been complex. Throughout history, mobsters have bribed officials, infiltrated governments, and even played roles in shaping major political events. Corruption has allowed many crime syndicates to thrive, and in some cases, criminals have transitioned into legitimate business or even political careers. One of the most well-documented aspects of the Mafia is the Code of Silence, known as Omerta. This strict rule forbids members from cooperating with law enforcement, and breaking it often results in deadly consequences. Informants, or rats, are considered the ultimate betrayers, and many who have testified against their former associates have been placed in witness protection programs to avoid retribution. Hollywood has played a significant role in shaping the public's perception of gangsters. Movies like The Godfather, Goodfellas, and Scarface have immortalized figures from organized crime, often romanticizing their lifestyles while depicting the brutality of their world. While these films are based on real events and figures, they sometimes blur the line between fiction and reality. Gangsters have also had a cultural impact beyond movies, influencing fashion, music, and literature. The style of 1920s and 30s mobsters, with their tailored suits, fedoras, and lavish lifestyles, has been imitated in modern pop culture. Hip-hop in particular has drawn inspiration from organized crime, with many artists referencing famous mobsters in their lyrics and personas. Despite the persistent efforts to eradicate organized crime, the reality is that it continues to be a formidable force. The economic incentives for engaging in illegal enterprises remain high, and new generations of criminals continue to emerge. The globalization of crime has made it even more challenging to combat, as syndicates collaborate across borders, using sophisticated tactics to evade law enforcement. Ultimately, the history of the Mafia and gangsters is one of adaptation and survival. As long as there is money to be made and power to be gained, organized crime will continue to exist, lurking in the shadows of society. Their stories will continue to be told, whether through historical accounts, films, or the ongoing investigations of law enforcement agencies determined to bring them to justice. Understanding the evolution and influence of gangsters provides insight into the ever-changing landscape of organized crime and its impact on the world today.